Today we've got a fierce matchup between the Georgia Southern Eagles and the Arkansas State Red Wolves. With the series tied 1-1, everything is on the line in today's game. Arkansas State won the previous matchup last year, so Georgia Southern is out for blood. With Georgia Southern winless so far this season and suffering tough losses to Auburn and Indiana, they're sure to be driven to get the victory here today. Arkansas State suffered a rough loss last weekend at SMU, so we can be sure our Red Wolves are going to hit that line hard down there in Georgia. We'll see if our hometown Red Wolves can hold off the mighty Eagles of Georgia Southern in today's game. Live from the ASU-TV studio, this is Red Wolf Roundtable, Game Day Edition.
This is Red Wolf Roundtable on ASU-TV. Welcome to Red Wolf Roundtable Game Day Edition. I'm your host, Wes Gwalney. Alongside me this afternoon, got Mr. Zach Ruppel. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, feeling pretty good. First live show of my career.
Hey, yeah, we just got back from we're not in Georgia this week. We are live here in the studio, so I'm enjoying this. But we got a big game today. Conference season about to kick off, season number 2 of the year. You know, you got non-conference. Looks real good whenever you get to bowl games and such, but conference is where it really matters. You got a big matchup between Arkansas State and Georgia Southern.
Yes, we do. Georgia Southern will be hunting for their first win, so they're out for blood, and Arkansas State, we're the defending champions. We got to hold this off.
Oh, yeah. Arkansas State looking to go 6 of the last 7 Sun Belt Conference championships. Georgia Southern looking to spool that parade just a little bit early. You know, game 1 of the year. This could be interesting. Yeah. Arkansas State's got to get through this. You know, they're always looking forward to that December 2nd game against Troy as, that could be our conference championship. They got to get through Georgia Southern this week in Statesboro. The game will be this evening, 6 p.m. In Statesboro, Georgia. Georgia Southern, Arkansas State, going to be a good one. Arkansas State coming off a big loss last week, a week and a half ago now, to SMU. Couldn't get the offense going. Justice Hansen was injured, and Georgia Southern coming off a pretty big game they had against Indiana, but they couldn't get anything going really offensively or defensively. They did have 2 touchdowns. I'm interested to see what's going to happen today.
Me too. I'm really interested to see what Georgia Southern's going to do with their first chance at a conference opponent. They've played some big teams in their season opener, of course, going against Auburn and Indiana, a game they probably should have won in New Hampshire, but, you know, things happen. So they are definitely looking for a win here against Arkansas State, and they have a pretty good record at home, so Arkansas State's certainly not in for a cakewalk.
Yeah, they are 10 of their last 10 home openers, so that's looking good for Georgia Southern. They were supposed to play New Hampshire originally at home, but that didn't happen. This isn't the first time this team has met. They met last year with the Arkansas State comeback at the end. Justice Hansen, a very young Justice Hansen back then. True. This is game number 2 of them. It's their 3rd meeting ever. In 2016, A-State won 27-26, and Georgia Southern topped the 1986 1AA national championship in Tacoma, Washington, 45-28. That last year game, I don't know if you saw it, that was a barn burner. That is for sure. That was a barn burner between Arkansas State and Georgia Southern.
Yes, it was. Of course, you know, Justice Hansen has only improved from that point in that game. So Georgia Southern is going to have to find some way to stop Arkansas State's offense. They're going to have to find a way to produce more offense themselves.
This is the first time Arkansas State's going to be seeing a full-on triple option, but Georgia Southern has a redshirt freshman quarterback, and which he just threw his first 2 touchdown passes against Indiana last week, and he had 1 interception against Auburn and 1 interception against New Hampshire. So I'm interested to see what the Arkansas State defense can do against a redshirt freshman quarterback.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and of course the triple option is hard to defend anyway. Teams that won that triple option, teams have a hard time getting that containment on the sides. You know, your cornerbacks drop back on the receivers, and they can't quite handle that triple option that well. So it'll be interesting to see how Arkansas State adjusts to defending a run like that.
See, on the big plays last week for Georgia Southern, they kind of had that triple option game working for them for a little while, and then they stepped back and play action, and they threw it and got those 2 touchdown passes. But I'm really looking forward to this game. Conference season about to get underway for the Arkansas State Red Wolves. We're going to come back with an analysis of Georgia Southern after the break.
As student athletes at Arkansas State, we would like to take the opportunity to thank you.
Because of you, we are able to perform at the highest level, both on the playing surface and in the classroom.
Because of you, we're able to live out our dream of being Division I student athletes.
Because of you, we are able to receive a great education and become professionals in our individual careers as a pharmacist,
As a future sports agent,
in international business,
as a professional football player playing in the Super Bowl.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable. Once again, I'm your host, Wes Golney. Alongside me today, I got Mr. Zach Ruppel. Big show coming up a little bit. We're going to analyze now Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern's coming into this game 0-3 on the year, and they didn't have very many highlights last week against Indiana, but we do got a couple to look at, so we're going to send it over to Morgan Jackson in the highlight den for a look at Georgia Southern highlights.
Thanks, Wes. Morgan Jackson here with the highlight den, of course. Georgia Southern starting out the season 0-3. Not able to get it done last week against Indiana, of course. Like Wes said, not very many highlights to go through. Came up a little bit short. I believe the score was 54-17. So here we go. We got Shai Wirt finding his wide receiver for one of their few scores for the game. And then again, Shai Wirt, getting hit hard, going deep, finding one of his favorite targets for the touchdown. Again, not one of the most touchdowns that they had. And then again, the long heave, of course, wide open. It's not much Indiana could have done about that. So Georgia Southern starting out 0-3 on the season, of course. Last loss to Indiana. They'll be looking this week to go up against a tough A-State team at home and get a good W to start their home opener.
All right, well, thank you, Morgan. That was a great analysis of the highlight section for the Georgia Southern. Once again, there was only two real big plays. That third one was a different look at it because you can kind of see the D-ball. Their quarterback, he's a redshirt freshman. He's not afraid to take hits in the pocket.
Yeah, he really isn't. He showed a great perseverance sitting in that pocket, making those deep throws and delivering it really when his team needed it. If there's any chance for a comeback, it was going to be off those two big throws. But what I'm really interested in not seeing almost is the fact that you don't have any highlights of their triple option.
Oh, Indiana shut it down. Indiana, a Big Ten team, of course, they just got to the edge, and that's what they were focused on, was shutting it down. But because they run the triple option so much, it opened up that game. You see that one was a play-action pass, and that opened up the deep ball, and just blown coverage by Indiana. They weren't expecting it, and that led to the two touchdowns. Final score was 52-17, but, man, Georgia Southern, that's the most points they put up this year. They put up 17 last week. They put up 12 the week before, and then 7 against Auburn, which Auburn's a very, very good team. They've just kind of had it rough lately.
Yes, they've had a rough season opening. Of course, you mentioned Auburn's a very good team. Of course, we saw their matchup with Clemson, and that turned into a defensive standoff between what you thought would be two offensive teams. So they've had some tough opponents, which could be spell bad news for A-State because they've had to fight through these waves of teams that may or may not be the caliber of the teams they'll have to face in the conference. So they could be a little bit more prepared for a harsher opponent when they enter their season opener.
Yes, Georgia Southern getting to play their first home game here in Statesboro, Georgia. But got to look at the keys to the game here. They got a big schedule coming up later on. But if they're going to win this game, number one, with Justice Hanson being hurt against SMU, they've got to pressure Justice Hanson.
Yeah, they've got to get to him. Their linebackers, their defensive ends, they've got to find a way to get into that backfield. And, I say this not in the sense of actually hurt him, but hurt Justice Hanson and his ability to pass.
Force him to make mistakes.
Yes,
you got to make him make mistakes. And then you've got to take away that deep ball. That's how Arkansas State has been scoring this year. Warren One's been somewhat effective. He had a couple good runs against SMU, which we'll get to a little bit later. But the run game's almost not there for Arkansas State right now.
True.
And Justice Hanson have to sling the ball around. If you can make him throw it short, which, they try to open up the short game to open up the deep game.
Yeah.
So they may think you're going deep, and then they'll throw a couple little slants or a couple little screens. And then for Georgia Southern, if they're going to take down Arkansas State, you're not facing those athletes you had against Indiana. You got to take away the run game.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And, of course, you mentioned that Arkansas State's run game hasn't really left the ground yet. We've been throwing it a lot. So it'll be interesting to see if the Red Wolves can generate that red game against Georgia Southern, who, of course, will be looking to shut that down even more.
Yeah, Georgia Southern looking to open up their run game against Arkansas State. Once again, not the greatest athletes on defense compared to Indiana.
Yeah.
Arkansas State's got a lot of great athletes, including Javon Roland-Jones, D-liner and such, Blaze Taylor back in the backfield. But they've got to trust in that run game because their quarterback, he's 2-2 on the year, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions as of right now. And he got those 2 touchdowns last week on some blown coverage to Indiana. You know, Arkansas State's watched the same film that we have. They've probably watched it more than we have. And so they're ready for this. But it's that home opener for Georgia Southern.
Yeah, it's true. And another thing to mention about their quarterback is he had those 2 completions, but he's only thrown for 48% completion rate on the season so far. So he's going to have to come out. He'll be surrounded by his home fans. He's got to be calm under pressure in that pocket and make sure he's delivering accurate throws so his weapons on the outside can generate some offense.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Georgia Southern definitely going to try to get some offense going this week. But that's going to do it for our Georgia Southern analysis segment. We'll be back with a big interview with Mr. Colin Pillow after the break.
Pretty little thing with your pretty little dreams. I can see you, I can see you. You can fly, 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 fly. All together now. All together now. All together now.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable Game Day Edition. Got a special guest with us this afternoon, Mr. Colin Pillow. Mr. Pillow, how you doing today?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Hey, you do a lot around campus. That's probably an understatement, actually. So, what kind of classes do you teach? You're a media teacher here in the Department of Media and Communication. So, what kind of classes do you teach?
Well, the majority of the classes I teach are in our sports media program. So I teach a lot of courses like sports casting, sports production, sports programming. But I also teach a freshman class called First Year Experience. So incoming freshmen in the fall, I'm teaching a class that introduces them to campus life and what it's like to be on campus.
Do you enjoy teaching that class right now?
I do enjoy that class. It's my 4th year to do that, and I really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Well, you're also big a part of something else on campus, ESPN3. Let's go in a little bit on that. Kind of tell me what you do with the ESPN3 program.
Well, I guess if you had to give a title to me, I might be considered the executive producer of our ESPN3 productions. We started in 2015 doing some research into the whole program, and the conference at the time, the Sun Belt Conference, was encouraging the member institutions throughout the Sun Belt to consider participating in the program. And it was a natural fit for us because we already had a media program, we're able to produce television. So we had some discussions at the college level and at the university level, and they said this would be a great opportunity to do that. So we underwent that program, built a trailer from scratch, got all the equipment that was specified by ESPN, and now we do conference basketball games. We do some baseball games during the year, some soccer and some volleyball. And it's a great opportunity for our students.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to work on with some of these ESPN3 crews. It's so much fun. It's a great learning experience. Now with ESPN3, have you all done any big conference tournaments or anything? Has Sunbelt gotten hold of y'all for that?
We have. They asked us to do the volleyball championship last fall in Arlington, Texas. So we spent 4 or 5 days down there doing that particular tournament. And then I guess they were so happy with the way it turned out that they asked us to also produce the Women's Soccer Championship that's coming up here at the end of October, 1st of November. And we're also looking at possibly helping them out with the Indoor Track and Field Championship in Birmingham, Alabama in February of next year.
So with this big, what goes into these big productions? Maybe one night, okay, a normal home conference game basketball. What would go into the production of an ESPN3?
Well, several days of preparation, rosters for both teams, statistics for both teams, getting all that information ready and loaded into the graphics system where students are going to be calling up specific information about individual players and coaches and teams and things like that. Preparing to identify specific players that we may want to point out during a broadcast that says, look out for this player, we think he or she's going to do really well or has done well in previous games, things like that. And then preparing to show some storytelling is really what we're doing. We're just trying to follow a match that's live or a game that's live, but occasionally something develops and we have to focus on that. And that's part of the process. The wonderful thing about live sports is it's never the same.
Yeah, absolutely. You never know what's going to happen. I remember in the basketball game, we had the basketball go into the top part of the state or the arena, which was crazy because they couldn't grab it. But it's so much fun working with ESPN3, and we love that y'all are bringing this here. Now, you're an alum of Arkansas State, correct?
I am.
And so how much has it changed from when you were in school to now? I mean, technology, of course, has changed, but these opportunities that are here for students.
Well, we were a little bit involved with sports and the athletics department when I was here as a student, but nothing to this level. We just occasionally went over and shot some games and tried to do some highlights for our ASU-TV channel. But what we're doing today is light years ahead of what we were doing when I was a student.
Okay, and we love that you've stayed here and taught all of us. A lot of us that are doing this production here, me included, have had one of your classes or will have some of your classes. I had you for sports production. That was a lot of fun going to work those ESPN3 games. Now, I got to ask, how excited are you for this conference opener for Arkansas State?
I'm very excited about it. I'm looking forward to what I think will be a really good game tonight, and I think we have a very good chance of dominating them just because they've started out so poorly this season. But it is their home opener on their own campus, so who knows? It could end up being a pretty good game, but I think it's going to end up on our side, I hope.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on air with us. We love having you. We'd love to have you back sometime here on Red Wolf Roundtable Game Day Edition. But that's going to do it for this segment. We'll be back with some Arkansas State analysis after the break.
As student athletes at Arkansas State, we would like to take the opportunity to thank you.
Because of you, we are able to perform at the highest level, both on the playing surface and in the classroom.
Because of you, we're able to live out our dream of being Division I student athletes.
Because of you, we are able to receive a great education and become professionals in our individual careers as a pharmacist,
As a future sports agent.
In international business.
As a professional football player playing in the Super Bowl.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable. Once again, I'm your host, Wes Gwilney. Alongside me today, Mr. Zach Ruppel. It's been a great show already, but we got to talk a little Arkansas State now. We've covered Georgia Southern. Arkansas State coming up a loss against SMU and with a hurt quarterback in that situation.
True, true. It's time to talk about our home team, and of course you mentioned our unfortunate loss to SMU. It was shaping up to be a good game until Justin Hansen, of course, took that fatal injury to Arkansas State.
He had the back spasms, in which he's supposed to be good to go for this evening's action against Georgia Southern. But I'm looking forward to it. Arkansas State, they had 2 touchdowns. They were actually ahead 14-10 after the first quarter. But there wasn't a whole lot of highlights besides that. They scored one more time at the end. But we're going to go to the highlight den once again. Mr. Morgan Jackson looking at Arkansas State.
Thanks again, Wes. So, of course, Arkansas State this season sitting at 1-2. Justice Hansen, kind of the highlight maker for the team, if you will. Of course, out last game with the back spasms. But here he is finding Omar Bayless, the deep bomb in the end zone. And then again, another deep bomb, finding Blake Mack, just going deep, play after play. Of course, these highlights are a little bit more deeper and more content-filled. Got Blake Mack again down the sideline, beating the defender, stumbling into the end zone. Of course, there was a fumble. But, I mean, it would have made a great highlight, of course. But they'll be looking to do a little bit more of that against Georgia Southern tonight. Of course, we'll just have to wait and see. Back to you, Wes.
Thank you, Morgan, once again. Arkansas State, they didn't have much highlights. I know it wasn't a very long highlight segment there, but they've got a good chance tonight against Georgia Southern. If Justice Hanson is back to normal Justice Hanson, we could have another one of those lighting it up games.
Yeah, no kidding. I wish we could have gone and got some highlights from our previous games
Yeah.
and buffed out that role, because Arkansas State certainly has the offense to pull this game out.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really going to be a question of if their defense can stop this triple option from Georgia Southern.
Yeah, Georgia Southern hasn't really tacked on many points. Going into last week's game, Arkansas State was averaging, against SMU, going into SMU's game, they were averaging 45 points a game. SMU held them to 21. But if you just watched the first quarter, when it was 14-10 Arkansas State, it looked like, all right, well, we're about to see just a back and forth, who can score the most points and whose defense gets one or two stops to win this game. And, Arkansas State struggled after Justice Hanson went down. They couldn't get the run game going, but they're looking to do that tonight. They've got Warren Wan, who, if he breaks off a big run, he showed some promise last week, broke off a couple runs against SMU. But he did not find the end. He found the end zone. He was that touchdown. He has two touchdowns on the year, one against UAPB and then one against SMU. But Arkansas State's got to get something going. We might have the best receiving corps in the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, it's a strong possibility. Of course, we average about 350 yards receiving a game, which is a fairly impressive stat. And we talk about our run game lacking, but when you have numbers in receiving, any number is almost going to look lacking to that. We do average about 120 yards rushing a game, which isn't terrible. So as Warren Wand, as you mentioned, can break off a couple big runs and jumpstart that run game early, we should be set for an interesting matchup.
Georgia Southern's defense has struggled. They allowed quite a few points to Auburn, and they also allowed a lot of points to Indiana, losing that game 52-17. But if Arkansas State's going to win tonight, they got some keys they got to go through here. They got to protect Justice Hanson.
True. You got an injured quarterback, so your O-line, he himself and the offensive coordinator and the head coach have got to go down to that O-line and tell them, hey, he's hurt. He's going to do all he can for this team, but you guys have got to step up and buy him time in that pocket.
We saw one of the turnovers last week for Arkansas State against SMU, and usually they're on the opposite side of that. They're the ones creating turnovers. They had 0 against SMU. They had 3 or 4 against UAPB. They were lighting up then, but they got to create some turnovers, which it's a possible. This quarterback for Georgia Southern, he threw an interception in week 1 against Auburn and then threw an interception last week against Indiana.
Yeah, so, and especially if they try to run that triple option, as they normally do early in the game, it's going to be a big problem with this freshman quarterback. Will he know when to pitch it? Will he know when to secure it? And if you catch him at just the right moment in between there, it's almost a guaranteed fumble every time.
Yes, absolutely. Arkansas State's had faced this before last year, Georgia Southern, but it's a different quarterback behind them. And this guy's quick. I was watching some of the interview with Blake Anderson and those folks, and they said this quarterback is quick, one of the quickest in the Sun Belt Conference without a doubt. Now, Justice Hanson, he'll get up and run if he has to. Arkansas State's got a big schedule coming up. They got to get through Georgia Southern this week, but then they're going to be taking on New Mexico State, UMass. They got Coastal Carolina. That is October 14th. Homecoming game for Arkansas State. Then they'll play Louisiana, New Mexico State, South Alabama, Texas State, Louisiana Monroe. Then December 2nd, they got to take down Troy.
Yeah.
Already looking forward to that one because a lot of people are like, oh, this could be our conference championship. Sunbelt's out another year from having a conference championship game. But that could be our conference championship game, but they got to get through Georgia Southern this week.
Yeah, every week you've got to take it as a new battle. You can't get caught looking too far ahead. That's ruined major players in Power 5 conferences. Yes. They start looking way down the road, and then all of a sudden you lose this matchup you never thought, and you're out of the race.
Absolutely.
Right at the end.
So Arkansas State's going to look to try to pick up a victory tonight against Georgia Southern, but that'll do it for our Arkansas State section of Red Wolf Roundtable. We'll be back with our game predictions coming up after the break.
Pretty little thing with your pretty little dreams. I can see you. I can see you. You can fly, 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 fly. All together now. All together now. All together now.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable. Once again, I'm your host, Wes Gwalney. Got alongside me today Mr. Zach Ruppel. We've been analyzing this matchup between Georgia Southern and Arkansas State, big conference opener. Let's actually look at a couple of the other games in the Sun Belt Conference over this coming week. Arkansas State, Georgia Southern tonight. Then everybody else plays on Saturday pretty much. Monroe versus Texas State, New Mexico State and App State. That's a big one. App State's kicking off their conference season. Louisiana and Idaho, and Georgia State and Coastal Carolina. You notice one team on there who won a big matchup last week against LSU and took them down.
True. Troy is proving big things. They're making that case for their conference championship, and props on Troy for going out there and beating a Power 5 team.
Oh,
like
yes,
that.
they do not play this week. This is their bye week. But, man, what an upset last week, Troy over LSU. And a lot of folks in Baton Rouge aren't too happy right now. But a lot of the folks in the Sun Belt Conference, you know, we're going to be facing Troy December the 2nd.
Yeah.
But they're pretty excited right now for Troy.
Well, yeah, and of course, you mentioned us playing them December 2nd. Georgia Southern's got to face them in 3 weeks. So after this game, both teams will probably be looking ahead to that Troy game after that show.
Oh, man, I'm still looking forward to this Arkansas State-Georgia Southern game, though, conference opener. And we've actually got some predictions for this game. We're going to kick it off over here. We got our Highlight Den analyst, Mr. Morgan Jackson, back with us. Morgan, what's your prediction for tonight's game?
For tonight's game, I think Arkansas State's going to go take it away, 35-13. I don't think Georgia Southern's defense is built to kind of hang with the Arkansas State offense, so I think A-State will take it.
Yeah. My personal prediction, I'm a bit more enthusiastic on Arkansas State's place and giving Georgia Southern a bit more credit. Of course, they've played some big opponents, but I have it 42-24 A-State victory because Georgia Southern's defense hasn't proven that they can stop an offense of Arkansas State's caliber, and I don't think their offense will be able to score points to keep up with us.
See, I'm also agreeing. I'm going to make it the clean sweep here for Arkansas State. I think they'll pick up the victory once again over Georgia Southern. I got them 42-14. I got Georgia Southern tacking on 2 touchdowns, but that thriving offense and Justice Hansen is supposedly, we're going to go with supposedly because we can't say yes or no, but he is supposedly back to being healthy. So I'm really looking forward to Justice Hansen. What's your one thing you're looking forward to tonight the most, Morgan?
One thing I'm looking forward to the most is I kind of want to see Georgia Southern, their quarterback play. Of course, they're 0-3, but as you can tell from the highlights, he looks like he's a quick guy. Looks like he knows what he's doing, of course. So whether or not they can get it done, it'll be interesting to see.
Zach, what's your one thing you want to see tonight?
Well, one thing for Georgia Southern is I want to see them pull off that triple option. I love watching a good triple option unfold and seeing all those routes, and love seeing the defense adapt to it. And so that brings up my Arkansas State thing. I want to see Arkansas State adopt to stop this triple option.
Arkansas State kind of runs their own version of the triple option. They just do it out of the spread. I'm looking forward to Arkansas State's defense tonight because my buddy Javon Roland Jones, that man, he needs to pick up some sacks. He's been kind of struggling on the year. But, man, this could be it. He's looking to set that Sun Belt record for sacks. And it looks awesome. D-liner, I believe, back is healthy, and that Arkansas State defense is much, much healthier than they were. But that is going to do it for Red Wolf Roundtable. I'm Wes Gwalney. He's Zach Ruppel, and he's Morgan Jackson. We'll see you next Saturday for homecoming.